Welcome back, crew. We are back with a brand new game of the month. I know it's been a bit of a hiatus. I've been getting over the flu for myself lately, but we are back at it with one I'm very excited for. We are diving into MCDM's Raw Steel as our game of the month. And anybody that's new to the channel, what being our game of the month means is we're going to spend the whole month focused on draw steel. We're going to go over our first impressions today, which basically means us going through and flipping through the book or PDF in this case, things that stand out to us from mechanics, the design space, just our overall first feel of their offering. From there, we're going to start diving in. We're going to go through and build a character utilizing the draw steel mechanics. We're actually going to have a poll down below. Make sure to click on that and choose which class we focus on for our character build. From there, we're going to go into our mechanics video, which will be split into two. One going over the adventuring mechanics, how to handle skill checks, how to handle kind of all the things that go alongside the typical adventuring day. And on the flip side, we're going to have a combat video focused only on how to handle the key combat rules, death, dying, everything you need to know to run that at your table. And after that, we're going to go into our live actual play, which will be Wednesday, September 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. There'll be a link down in the comics. Click that and make sure to click notify me so you'll be able to join us when we go live. You can see this system put through its paces live with me at my table. And as always, we're going to be giving away a free PDF copy of the core rulebook to one lucky viewer who joins us live. So make sure you come through, get to see the system played out, and hopefully you get that nat 20 or double tens and get to be able to bring this home for you and your crew. And after that, we, as always, will wrap up with our review of the system, going over our roses, thorns, we liked, didn't like, and are excited to try for this system in the future. Yeah, let's dive into first impressions. And one of the things I'm going to start off with, just as a note, I've mentioned it before on the channel, but I'm a huge Matt Colville fan. His running the game series is one of the biggest kind of things that taught me how to GM and kind of form my own distinct GM style. His political series is amazing. So I was really happy to hear to see that he was going to be able to making his own RPG, kind of with his own philosophies, his own design thoughts, and I really like following their journey through there. They are 100% the most open publisher about their creation journey, because I followed this on their Patreon for, I think, over 3 years now. You get to see the iterations and the things they've chosen, things they've thrown out, and just kinda getting to see them work with the community and work with their own designs and thoughts to build something that they've been proud of, and that's kind of I think they're gonna be a big player within the TTRPG space. So I'm excited for this one. One thing that we're gonna do a little bit different with our first impressions videos, we call it kind of things I'm interested to see how this system handles. One thing I'll kind of highlight too, I'm a very big fan of tactical fantasy systems. If you've watched Pandemonium, we use Pathfinder 2E for that. I love systems that can handle tactics and encourage tactics within their player base. I love when they have a lot of different options and choices that players get to make. And I can really kind of give room for strategy and tactics. So I'm really excited to see how this system fits because as we get into their design space, their ethos fits into what I look for in a system. So with that, we're going to call out three pieces I really want to see how this system handles. The first one, I want to see how the characters feel. Do they all feel unique? Is there a lot of different options that you can go through when building your ancestries, your classes, your careers, all of the pieces that come in to form your character? Are there enough of them that they feel like your character will feel unique, even if somebody shows up with the same ancestry and class? Will they feel like they're playing the same character? Will they still feel like there's room for uniqueness with your PC? After that, one of the things, and this is something that I've kind of started really focusing on, especially with my transition to Pathfinder 2E, how much work or how much of a burden does this system place on the game master or the director, as we should say, for the draw steel system? Is this one that they need to? It's going to have a lot of additional prep for them. Is there a lot of pieces they're going to have to keep track of? I want to see how this feels in the game master chair to see if it's something that's going to be on the 5e side of the workload, where it's going to have a lot that you need to do, or if it's going to be more where it's going to fall. That's something I really want to see how that plays out with this system. And finally, I want to see how the combat feels. I want to both kind of split between how the combat feels as well as how the overall system feels. For the combat, I really want to make sure they're hitting their own ethos on that side, getting that heroic, tactical fantasy feel. But I also want to see how the system feels and if it's going to be a good for a long-term campaign where it's tweakable or if it's moldable to different situations that could fit into those ethos that they've described. So those are my big three things that I'm gonna be focusing on as we go through these videos. You'll see me reference them a couple of times as we go in, and especially a lot during the review video and live actual play. So just keep those in mind as we go through. And shout out in the comments what key things you're interested in for this system. What are the big things that it probably needs to win you over on, or what is it? What are you looking to see if it does, or what is it hoping that it would do better? So shout those out in the comments. But let's dive in. So with this, one of the things I really enjoyed about their design journey for going through and building Draw Steel was how focused and open they were with their key building blocks for the system. If you're not aware, they chose four key words to describe their system that they pretty much vetted every facet of the mechanics, the design through. They wanted it to be these four things. They wanted it to be heroic. You don't necessarily have to be heroes, but they wanted it to feel like you were kind of those heroes of old, where you're going through, you're taking actions that feel inspired or courageous, that you're able to go through and do things that a normal person shouldn't be able to do. They also wanted it to feel cinematic. They wanted the system to feel like you were part of a movie, part kind of that action feel where you're not bogged down by minutia. Like one of the things they mentioned is nobody ever asked if Indy reloaded his gun or how much ammunition he carries on him. That's not important to them on that side. They're focused more on that cinematic feel, great action pieces, great deeds that feel inspiring for the table. Uh, and the easy one, they wanted fantasy. It's going to be based in a fantasy world. They want those elements that can build into the common pieces that people associate with fantasy to be present with this system and with their own MCDM take on it. And then finally, one of the probably the most important for me is they wanted it to be a tactical game. And this is one of the things I'm going to really applaud them for here too, especially with the way they laid it out in the PDF. Is they're very upfront. This game may not be for everyone. It's going to be for the game players who like to focus more on those strategic and tactical elements, who like to kind of mess with their builds, that like to synergize with their teammates, utilizing not just RP, but also kind of synergizing their mechanics through. And they're very upfront about that. So they called out their ethos, and I've seen it throughout some of the different way they've set up mechanics and class builds. It is one that you're going to have to kind of pay attention to the system, pay attention to the flow of the table too, especially with how many different reactions and abilities play off of other PCs' actions. It's one that I feel that players will hopefully will be more engaged at the table because they have to be to make sure that they're getting all of their abilities off and getting the benefit of all the other players' abilities as they go off as well. So that tactical pillar, I think, will be really interesting to see how it plays through, how kind of it impacts different facets of the game. But just overall, an early rose for them, calling out exactly the style of game that they are making, and even calling out, and then there's an early section of the book too, where they even recommend different types of games that may fit outside of kind of where this system is going. So I like that they know what they're going for. They're not trying to be everything to everyone. They built a game for a particular player in mind and table in mind, and they designed for it. So that's a really big thing to do. So with those key pillars out of the way, one of well, early pieces in the book calling out another nice thing too is they also call out things that are going to be different from your other fantasy games within the system, because they know that it's pretty easy if you get into tactical fantasy. Everybody kind of lumps like the 5Es, the Pathfinder 2Es, and all those in together. So they wanted to clarify kind of where their design space is going to fit in with heroic tactical fantasy cinematics and all that thrown in together. So with those, they called out a couple of easy ones. One of the biggest being, especially if you're coming from Pathfinder like myself, small modifiers. They did not want it to be a lot of math in the system. They wanted the modifiers to be small, the dice to still play their key role. So the modifiers are small. They also call out that the character options will be different. This is if you've got a cleric in mind that you maybe run a couple times in 3.5 to 5e and all of that. and you want to kind of build that exact build here, you may not be able to do that. They've come in with their own classes, their own design options. So with that, character options are different, and make sure you're kind of going through and utilizing the system for your inspiration to build your design. With that as well, one of their biggest design ethos, and this would be one like I'm curious, I'm on the fence about still. But abilities always do damage. You always hit. That's one of their big pieces. That's one of their probably one of their first or earliest that I can remember key system pieces that they announced and have stuck with pretty much the whole time. That there's not missing, there's not a rolling in that one, and not having your damage or not doing some bit of damage. They've got a three-tier system, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But that is one of their key ethos. And I'm curious. That'll be kind of one of the things I also track throughout our journey through the draw steel system. I'm not sure about it. I think it's a cool thing to do different to separate yourself from a lot of other systems. But I'm not sure 100% where I fall on it yet. So I want to see it played. I want to see it at the table. I want to kind of see how it works with the math as we go through deeper into the mechanics and character build aspects for the system. So that's one of the other big pieces too. The other two things are a little bit smaller. They've got a ton of skill diversity. I think there's like 30 different skills. I'll have to we'll count when we get to the character build episode. But there's a lot of them. So they call that out in the system as well. And the other piece they call out too is your heroes in the system. This isn't one where you're often going to have to interrupt for a long rest. And the way that they handle long rest are pretty cool, which we'll touch on in a bit too. Or how they handle the kind of dichotomy between pushing on and taking a long rest is pretty cool. So with those are kind of the key pieces they call out themselves between the kind of what differentiates themselves and what they built their system towards. So let's get into our usual long rest discussion, or not long rest, our usual first impressions discussion. So with this, typically I have a copy of the book before we do this video, but with this one, I thought it'd be cool to do it a little bit earlier. I'm hoping I may get the book before we finish with all of the videos, but at least for now, we're operating off the PDF. Flipping through the PDF, I really love the art style they went with for this. I think it has a unique flavor and it hits their four pillars. It feels like it really does have like a cinematic vibe to it, and it kind of fits my favorite style of fantasy art too. So very big fan of the art. You can even see on the picture here as well. A little bit of kind of how they designed the art style. I've been very happy with it so far. I've flipped through both their Heroes book, which is their core rule book, as well as their monsters book, which is like their monsters manual. And I've been very impressed, especially the monster manual with kind of all the cool stuff they've got in there. So definitely one that's a good flipper through, even if you're not going to be looking directly for mechanics, is one that's kind of fun to look through and look for inspiration on too. With that said, let's get into a little bit of how their dice system works. So their dice system is 2d10. You roll 2d10 and utilizing your modifier. Remember, with this system, the modifier is a little bit smaller too. So very more contained results on that side. With their system, though, you roll 2d10. You're not rolling the hit. You're always going to be using damage. But the 2d10 is going to show you how your damage is going to show up. So if you get that first tier, because they're going to have tiers on all of their abilities, and we'll show you a little bit more of that during our character build video. But that first tier, it's going to be kind of if you're doing a skill check, it's going to be a failure. If you're doing an attack, it's going to be minimal damage. Nothing's really special is going to happen with it. It's going to be kind of just some base damage. You've done something. So one of the big emphasis, they didn't want you to feel like you're 15 minutes has gone by since your last turn. Your turn comes up, you roll poorly, and you did nothing. So with this, you still have some of that minimal damage on that side, and you get to go through and kind of at least contribute to that fight. But overall, that tier, you're not going to do too much. The middle tier, so you roll decently with your 2d10 and your modifier. That, if you're doing a roll, be a success with the cost. Or it could be just, if depending on the roll, just a typical success. With that, if it's a damage roll, you could be doing moderate damage. This is a time where some of your additional abilities could stack up with it, or additional conditions or features or options on the ability that you're utilizing could come into play. And then that highest tier, that's going to be typically if you're doing a skill challenge, a success with a bonus, or for damage, it's going to be the highest tier of damage, and then typically there will be some additional piece you get with it, whether it be a condition or some bonus or something like that that comes with getting that best tier on there. So with that, we're gonna keeping that in mind as we go through the character option build and mechanics. I think this is gonna be a really big differentiator for them with how they handle that. So we're gonna be really focusing in on that during some of the kind of the pieces where we dive into this system. But overall, couple other things I want to hit on that before we wrap it up. One of the things I'm excited to try. This is one that I'm excited for, and I think I will like. The rather than one of the big things they wanted to differentiate themselves from other kind of fantasy systems too, is they are rather than getting kind of weaker as you go throughout the day, and you still will get weaker with your HP and recoveries. But each time you go through a challenge, whether it be a fight, social encounter, negotiation, or a skill challenge, you can earn a victory point. And what those victory points equate to is whenever you get into your next combat, they directly correlate to the amount of class resources that you'll start with at the start of that combat. So if you walk in with 4 victories under your belt, you'll start with 4 of your class's heroic resource. So it's one of those ones, the more that you press on throughout the day, the more that adventuring day goes on, the more heroic deeds you guys stack up in one day, the more cool things you can do within a fight. So that I'm excited to see how that plays out at the table. The hard thing, the one shots, we're not going to be able to dive fully into that piece because from what I've seen, Raw Steel's combats typically last around the same length of a 5e combat, so probably get in like 1.5. A picky one to start with a longer one throughout the day. But using some other skill, other kind of challenges for the group to go through during the adventuring day to make sure they could still earn those victories and get to see how that plays out for the last fight for the one shot. So that'll definitely be something we go into. I'm curious to see how it feels with some of those abilities. Because with these, attrition's not a thing for Draw Steel. So I'm wondering if the cool abilities will still feel cool if you could theoretically do them in any fight, or do they you still keep that uniqueness just due to having to kind of earn that heroic resource to bring them to bear? So that's kind of another thing that's on my list on that side to see how that feels in play, how that feels from both the GM perspective as well as a player perspective. Another thing that I'm excited to dive into for this system is the GM gets malice points too, which I always love when the GM gets their own version of heroic points. It's fun to be able to have dastardly things you can do with your monsters and minions and have a system behind that to kind of earn and spend those rewards. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that feels in play and practice on that too. But overall, this kind of first impressions. Overall, I like the art style. This is one. Well, it's first impressions. I played this three. I played versions of this. Let me clarify. About 3 times. I think I've played all 3 of their major playtests that have come out. But this will be my first time behind the screen for the system. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that feels. I'm really excited to do a full character build. We did one of the earlier betas as well. I'll throw a link down to that video too, so you can see how it's changed once we get the new one out. But overall, just excited to see how this one feels with their finalized, polished system. It's still one of the things I'm hoping we get the book in before too. I'd love to show off the book as well, but I think shipping doesn't go out till late September, early October, so we'll likely be done with this series before then. But overall, happy to be diving into this as our game of the month. Newer shout out in the comments below things you like about this system, things you want us to focus on with this system as we go through our coverage. And then definitely make sure to join us Wednesday the 10th. I know we're doing a little bit, we're doing it in the middle with our actual play. As I said, I was sick. You probably hear it in my voice still a little bit the last few weeks. So I just have not had a chance to get a video up. But we are back up. We are here and excited to get into Draw Steel and see how this system plays out and see if this could be one that could be one of our long term games that are kind of added into our portfolio systems that we'll run on a long term basis. Yeah, thanks for hanging out and till next time.